Welcome to Talkin' Shit, where we are talking all sorts of shit about Schitt's Creek, that is. That wasn't the normal intro, but that's okay. I don't care. Today, we are here to talk about Season 1, Episode 12, Surprise Party. And of course, joining me is someone who loves a tour of Chicago's best deep dish pizzas. Stuart, how are you?
Should I say that again, Jess?
Welcome, someone who loves the tours of deep dish pizzas.
Well, never in the history of surprises has one been so delightfully blindsided. How's it going?
Oh, I'm good. I'm a mess. It's hot. It's like 90 degrees here in New York, which I don't know what that is in Celsius, but suffice it to say that it's super hot and not fun. 32.
32? Yeah. That's a heat wave over here. So good luck melting in that. Yeah.
I shouldn't even be talking about heat because the guest that we have with us today lives in Texas, which is much hotter than New York. And he is always here to help children with troubled mouths. Chappell, how are
you? No, that is my favorite line of the episode. I'm good. Listen, Stuart, I know. Look, I know we get a lot of things wrong here as Americans, but the one thing I think we got down packed is the temperature thing, because 90 sounds hot. It does. Like, it just 91 degrees. It sounds hot. No. 32 does not sound that hot. You know, if you told somebody something was 100, you're like, wow, that's a lot. 32 sounds like, oh, it's not so bad.
30 sounds hot when you grow up with 30 sounding hot, is all I'm going to say.
Chappell, I know I'm an American and I probably should be on the side of Fahrenheit, but I think where I land on this debate is 0 should be freezing. And the fact that it's not in our system makes absolutely no sense. Like, 0 should be the coldest.
Yeah. I mean, it should be, but counterpoint, 0 is literally freezing. Yes. It is. And then you just go up from there.
Below freezing. Well, I think the problem is, Chappell, is because you're in Texas, you never really experience 0 that often.
Stuart, if it gets to 68, I'm like, oh God, it's cold. Where's my coat? A parka. I need a sweater. And I think that's like, that's nothing for like the East Coast. The United States.
68 is where I'm comfortable.
Leave me at shorts and t-shirt.
A nice brisk 85 degrees, you know, like that is where I live. So 91 is a little hot, but yeah, if you give me like a nice cool 84, that's where I live. It's basically a desert. Yeah,
it's too much for me. But Chappell, we're so happy you're here today, joining us on Talking Shit. Please give us a little bit of a breakdown of your experience with Schitt's Creek, because I don't think I knew that you had seen Schitt's Creek until you reached out to me and were like, oh, by the way.
Yeah, I think I saw you tweeting about it. I was like, wait, are you talking about this? Because now I have to tap in because I love this show. So I have seen this show in its entirety once, but only because I only watched the newest season when it was dropping new. So I've never seen the last season more than once, but I've seen every episode at least more than once, put it like that. And just like spurts, right? So I've only watched it all the way through once, but I've gone back and I've watched several episodes a billion times. Like, there are some episodes that I have memorized because they're just wacky, they're crazy. I cannot wait until you get there, Stuart, because this is only the beginning. But the show was brought to me by my old coworkers. I worked at a predominantly white Christian private school, right? And all of my coworkers, they were not black like me, right? So they were trying to explain to me, and they were trying to get me involved in their conversations. They're like, well, you watch a lot of TV, you should watch Schitt's Creek. I'm like, are there any black people there? They're like, kind of. They're like 1 or 2. I said, oh, okay. Well, not my first time, not my first rodeo. Yeah, exactly. And I was like, well, and I was like, oh, I'll check it out, because I need to be able to have this conversation with y'all. What do I look like not being able to talk about a TV show with somebody? It's kind of my brand. And so I go and watch it. And the first episode, I'm like, this is fine. Like, I just wasn't moved. And then episode 2 or 3, I was like, this is fine. And then probably around like the middle, I said, okay, Like I think I love this. And then by season 2, I was like, no, I know I love this. Season 3, I was like, no, this is my favorite show of all time. You know, it really just starts to build and build and build.
Yeah.
And the show gets better with every episode. It's so good. And I watched it during the pandemic. So
yeah.
We got sent home because most colleges shut down. You know, the ones that cared about students at all sent their kids home. And so we went home, and I had a lot of time to watch TV, and I just decided to binge this show. And so it was just like my daily watch. I would watch this and ironically enough, Community, because somebody had started a community building podcast, and it got me back into it. So yeah, there were things that were just happening while I was at home, working from home during that like 2 or 3 year span between 2020 and 2023, where I really connected with this show. And so I'm very happy that y'all are talking about it. But you're just at the beginning. It's precious right now. It's gonna get good soon.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear you say that too. Like, I feel like for a lot of people, this was a COVID watch. I don't know if it's because the final season dropped during COVID that like a lot of people were playing catch up during COVID. But Stuart, I have an inkling that the big reason for it is because it is such a heartwarming show that like in a time of like strife and like bad news all around, this is like a very comforting show.
Yeah, completely. This is why like I think like like looking at it, this Ted Lasso like hit off massively because everyone was like, we need a hug at this point. We don't need to be like reminded of the morally grey characters of like Breaking Bad and how awful the world can be in Succession. We kind of need, although we did like a bit of Succession, we need a hug as well. Like you need to not be doom and gloom all the time. So this was like refreshing, I can imagine. I regret so much not having watched it like along with everyone else. But I'm kind of enthusiastic with the fact that like you're yet another guest that we've had on that has said it just gets better and better, which has been so kind of encouraging for me because I'm here going, well, what have I committed to here? I don't even know anything about this show. I could hate this by season 6. No, it doesn't sound.
Yeah.
So it's the hug you're talking about just gets tighter and tighter and tighter until you're finally like in a weighted blanket by the end of this. And you're just like, oh my God. And then so you're gonna love it.
Yeah. Well, let's start talking about season 1, episode 12, Surprise Party. I'll kick us off with a quick little recap in case you didn't watch the episode. Talk to the hand, listeners, because the mouth is moving. Okay, that made about as much sense as what Johnny said. Moira's birthday is coming up, and Johnny is doing his best to give her a night to remember. He enlists the help of his uninterested kids and Roland to help surprise Moira with a big party. They tell Moira that Jocelyn is throwing a fundraiser for children with troubled mouths. But the Silly Roses don't expect Moira will get super involved in the planning process. While trying to help plan the party, David butts up against Moira's aggressive event planning and Stevie's passive aggressiveness. David spills the beans to Moira once she proves to be too difficult to deal with. And with Ted out of town on a vet conference, Alexis sees the birthday party as an opportunity to hang out with a gussied up mutt. Unfortunately for Alexis, Ted is such a good boyfriend that he left his conference early to attend Moira's birthday party. Shame on you, Alexis. We end our episode with a lovely slow dance to Strangers in the Night by Sinatra and a little bit of a butt grab for funsies. Stuart, what did you make of this episode?
I loved it. Unsurprising. We wanted this journey, or at least I have wanted this journey for this entire season to be that the Roses are going to grow to love Schitt's Creek. And we've finally like got that from Johnny in a way at the end. And like the little butt grab, like kind of copying Roland in a way, like kind of leaning in, kind of, sod it, why not? Oh, it was weirdly heartwarming in an oddly creepy way.
That's the season finale for you. It's really like a butt grab, but you'll get there soon enough. But yeah, I agree. This is where you start to really see like, okay, if we have to be here, let's make the best of it. The town is not completely awful. There's obviously some things that you cannot get in town, like a ganache tort. But you know, when the town is when the town is showing its charming side, right? I don't think you can beat, you know, this group of characters. Even seeing Moira and Johnny and the family lined up outside about to go into this surprise not fundraising party. She's just like, yeah, look at y'all. Look at my family. We're about to go into, sure, it's a barn. It's questionable, but it is a barn. And that's okay. We're going to make the best of this. And so even in a barn, this family that we know has never seen anything like this town. They fit right in, you know, and it was pretty cool because like Johnny has the moment, but also Moira is having the moment because she's a fundraising goddess, apparently. And she's already like, no, I have to be philanthropic in this moment. I have to help these people. They're getting indoctrinated. And whether they like it or not, I think they're here to stay.
Yeah, I really enjoy that. Gosh, you can't find a better community of people when I mean, obviously you're enlisting Roland to help you with this lie, right? Pull off this lie, which questionable choice, obviously. But then when you do and you get Jocelyn involved, it's like very quickly, suddenly the entire town is helping with a surprise party for Moira. And you wouldn't get that in like New York City or like some big city like where the Roses are from. It's only happening in Schitt's Creek. And I adore that. And I think you're right, Stuart, that the butt grab at the end is very, as silly as it is, it's very symbolic that like Moira is doing a thing that Roland is doing. And you just would not have that on like the pilot episode. We've come very far in just 12 episodes.
Completely. And we're not entirely there. It's not as if they've like dove all the way in and they are kind of fully ingratiated into the town. They still have their moments. Like you get Johnny being foiled in the beginning by going to Roland for a solution. Roland proposes a half decent solution to get like Moira out, which is to invite them over to his for dinner. And Johnny could go, yeah, we could dress up for that kind of thing. But no, Johnny's just like, oh no, it has to be fancier. And it's like, well, that's what starts this downfall of relying on Roland to tell an elaborate lie, which he just cannot do. So we're not fully there, but seeing this kind of like first step of just acceptance and to kind of appreciate the realness of these people who do things out of the kindness of their own hearts and not because they're out for a quick buck or they're out to like take advantage of people as like things in big cities would often do, like to rent out like an event space you'd be charged through the teeth for it. It was it's just heartwarming and a hug, and I can't get over it. I'm just all mushy for it.
Yeah, the town is embracing them so much that they can't help but embrace the town back. You know, when you go to, I mean, we see Johnny, as much as he's pretty much disgusted at Roland. I know early on, Stuart, you were disgusted at Roland too. Even with like that, knowing the way you feel, like he always knows where he can turn. You know, it's like, I need to use a truck. Where's Roland? We want to get away from the weekend. Where's Roland? You know, we're having a party. I need Roland. I need Jocelyn. They were repulsed by these people when they first got there, and they know these people got their backs. And so, yeah, as try as they might, I think that the warm hug has started, you know, and then like even for them, they're starting to get embraced. And yeah, sure, they do a little booty grab at the end too to kind of signify that they're kind of getting on board with everything here at Schitt's Creek as well.
Yeah, and I really enjoy, I think it was my husband who had pointed out that when we see Roland go in and try to do the whole like, sorry, I'm late, Johnny, and like the telling Moira about the fundraiser and everything, I think to his point, the reason that Moira doesn't catch on is because she really doesn't really listen to anything Roland says. Like she really half pays attention. So all she really caught from that conversation was, oh, there's a fundraiser. Okay, yes, put us down for 4 seats. We'll support Jocelyn's philanthropic endeavors.
I just love how blasé she is about everything.
Yeah. She's reading a magazine or something where she says it like, it's the least we can do to support one of Jocelyn's philanthropic efforts. Like, oh, okay. It was like, and we hadn't really heard about Moira's philanthropy either. Stuart, one of the things that I struggled with at first was like, why am I supposed to care about these rich people? Like, you know what I'm saying? And I heard you kind of echo those thoughts too. Like, oh my God, these extremely wealthy people in episode 1, they're being humbled a little bit. How am I supposed to connect to them? But I think it's moments like this where, yeah, this woman is extremely wealthy, but look at what she cares about. She's like, yeah, I was blah, 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 philanthropy. Be there. I got it. Charity. Got you. You know, it snaps in, you know, we find out she worked closely or against Hillary Clinton in some capacity for her foundation as well, you know. So I like those are the moments that just the tiny things that endear you slowly to each of these characters. And even with their immense amount of wealth, you can still feel sorry for them in a situation like this.
Yeah, they all seem to have their projects that they kind of like dive into. So you got like Moira with the philanthropic efforts, and like I love the fact that with that she was just like, even like to be the point of like, I'm going to be so charitable that we're going to be the most profitable non-profit as well, which cracked me up when she says that. I was like, of course she's just going to overlook the whole non-profit status of that's that. But then you've also got like kind of David, who really takes it upon himself to do the events kind of like side of things. And it's like anyone could just be like, no, I'm not doing that, Dad. I'm not going to do it. But David just takes it on the chin. It's like, yeah, I'm an events person. I'll do it. And like fills that role, which I thought was incredible to see, because I think anyone else that was playing a really kind of like spoiled rich kid, they would just be like, no, I'm not doing it, and reject it, and there'd be conflict. But like you can tell that there is a nugget of goodness in him that he did go along with it.
And it does seem like it feels like Moira and David really are cut out of the same cloth in this episode as well. And we've seen this before, but I feel like it really shows in this episode where it's like she can't help but get involved in this like fake fundraiser, and David can't help but try to make this, even though they have no money at all, make this a nice event for his mom. And you could tell they can't help themselves, that they need to get involved and actually make it work. Like Chappell, I think if David doesn't care, then he's not going all the way to Elmdale to get a chocolate tort, and he's just getting some like yellow sponge cake from the local grocery store, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point, especially because if like, yeah, of course they're pushing back. They're not used to this kind of stuff. And when they initially always push back, but there are the moments where when they get involved, they have to go 100%. They have to go 110%. This is as big as I can go. I'm getting this ganache cake, because they're so used to being extravagant people. They're so used to having just larger than life parties and stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's a barn, but we're decorating the barn. We're getting the cake. We're doing all this stuff. It's going to be a surprise party. It just can't be a ho-hum affair. But I love David pushing back against the party initially. When Johnny comes in, it's like, okay, it's your mother's birthday coming up. They're like, no. And he's like, yes, we're throwing her a party. No, we're actually not doing that. What do you mean we're not doing that? No, we're not doing that. Well, it's your mother's birthday. I don't think that's a good idea. I just don't think that's going to happen. He's just like, yeah, it is going to happen, David. So then once you get to the immediate argument, he's like, okay, well, since I have to do it, let's completely do it. And I love that from them.
Especially when they're trying to argue about, when Moira and David are arguing about the decor, and David can't say that he's the one who's been like working on this with no budget, but he's like defending Jocelyn to Moira, and you have Moira and Ronnie involved. When, I mean, again, Stuart, I know you're a huge Jocelyn fan at this point. She's like working overtime on faking a fundraiser to help throw Moira a party that she found out about literally like a day ago.
From Moira. God, the surprise party from Moira.
Exactly. Imagine being told by the subject of a surprise party that you're going to be throwing it for them. It's wild. But like Jocelyn just takes it on the chin. Like when Moira comes over and like says that, Jocelyn just plays along. It's like, oh, right. Like at first I was a bit worried. I thought Jocelyn might give up the whole like kind of situation, but no, she plays along with it, and then takes close to abuse when Moira comes in to start critiquing everything and doesn't say a word. The only person that even like David was, I don't think, defending Jocelyn, was supposedly defending Jocelyn in actually defending himself. But it was only Ronnie that really spoke up for Jocelyn in that whole moment. And for a second, I thought we might get a battle of the Titans here, because when Ronnie like spoke up, I was like, oh, shit's going to go down, because I don't think that these two forces have ever come into contact with each other before. And I was like, what would happen? Like in this absolute war of words between the two. And thankfully, I think the two of them kind of recognized like gamesy's game kind of thing and backed the hell down.
Yeah, Ronnie saying, I'm not paying for this thing was just incredible.
Wait, she said, I'm not paying for this thing. And I think Moira's response is like, oh God, don't you people know what a fundraiser is? Like, ma'am, if you don't shut up. Like,
yeah, especially when, again, like Moira asks questions and then never really listens to the answers, right? When she asks, oh, what's the organization? David mumbles off like, oh, the surgeons, the doctors who uncleft the mouths. This didn't make any sense. Oh, but
Annual
it's incredible.
fundraiser for children with troubled mouths is the best line of any series ever because troubled mouth.
It's so perfect. And yeah, Moira cracks me up in this episode, especially her reaction to the party. Just again, she's an actor. Like she is a famous soap opera actor.
She needs your plan book, Stuart. Your plan book. It's not plan book.
Oh, bless her.
It's just so incredible. And she does seem very appreciative. I really loved her when the whole family is about to go in. Again, like you get the sense from episode 1 that the family isn't like particularly close. They've kind of they're all living very different lives from one another, beyond obviously like Johnny and Moira, but they all are very busy and have separate lives. And so when they have this moment together outside, I love Moira saying like, "Oh, look at us roses. Like we clean up so nice." And what does she say about David? Like, "Oh, you look like your father on the day that I met him," which is also it's also like adorable because like obviously Eugene and Dan Levy are father son. So like the whole thing is just so sweet and adorable.
Yeah, I think she certainly appreciates it because obviously like you've had Alexis off with whoever on whichever yacht that she has been yachting
or
on.
being kidnapped, you know.
Yeah, and then you've got David like kind of doing exhibitions in New York and stuff for these kind of like artists and doing these like, niche things. So they have been disparate and all over the place. So I think this is a rare opportunity to find them all together. And I think Moira deep down is just like, yeah, I really do like this.
Yeah, she does, and then they're it's our kids, you know, and these are kids that we have to imagine have not been extremely close to their parents, like y'all said. So now it's like the town is forcing them to be together, you know, in a way that in the past they've been able to just move freely. I think if this is a year ago to the day, there's no way Alexis is at that party. She's just not.
Alexis
She's like, no.
thinks her mom's birthday is Mother's Day. It's the second Sunday in May.
Isn't it a Mother's Day, Jess? Look, we have not talked about. Her
mom's birthday moves from year to year.
I stand this woman. It's Mother's Day. Is that not her mom? Is that not her day? Okay, so it's Mother's Day. She wins. Alexis won.
I feel like it's somewhat justified for her to forget that, considering that Moira can barely remember her full
middle name. Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Yeah. So now we'll know that Alexis in the future might actually remember her mom's birthday. Wow. It took all of this. You had to lose all your money before you actually started caring about the woman who gave you birth. It's crazy.
Yeah, let's talk about Alexis a little bit because she's desperately trying to get out of going to this party. She wants to go to Chicago with Ted. And honestly, I don't know, Stuart, how you felt about this, but it very much reads like I'm going to use my boyfriend to go travel somewhere and get room service, and her shutting down.
Babe.
her shutting down the deep dish pizza tour was blasphemous in my mind. How dare, I mean, I'm not the biggest deep dish pizza fan, but like any sort of food tour, sign me up. Yes, please.
Well, I mean, it's probably going to have to change, but what else did you book for us? Like, drew a line through it. It was just like, no question. It's like, lovely. We're not doing that. What else do you have planned? What's next on the list, Ted? Ted can't do anything right unless really Alexis is properly guiding him towards where he's got to go, right?
Yeah, and it kind of feels to me, and I don't know, again, maybe this is because it's my third rewatch or something, however many times I've seen this show at this point, that it feels like Ted is constantly kind of guiding Alexis to what like he believes to be the correct moral decision, right, Chappell? It's like, oh, Alexis, we can't go. You know, it's your mom's birthday. You really should stay and go to that.
And I don't even think for Ted, it feels like he has to guide Alexis. I think for him, that's the natural thing that a normal human being would do. It's like your mom's having a huge birthday party. The town is throwing her a fundraiser, like you're throwing her a surprise party. And she's like, yeah, but Chicago. It's like, you don't care about a veterinarian, conference or anything like that. It makes total sense to Ted. And he's almost so innocent to where he couldn't even fathom the world where Alexis would not want to be there. So he's like, babe, honestly, you don't have to skip this. She's like, no, please, take me to the Clarendon downtown as long as we're upgraded and get room service, you know? But yeah, so I like Ted, but it doesn't feel like he knows he needs to go do this for Alexis. It's just like, Alexis is right there, this like lump of clay, and he's just doing normal human things and being kind to people. And it's like every time he does it, she's like, wow, I didn't know you could act like that towards somebody. You could be thoughtful and remember somebody's birthday and skip your own functions and do something else for somebody else. A concept. Yeah, he's a very good influence on her. But Stuart, I have to ask, you know, are you team Mutt or team Ted?
Absolutely never team Mutt. This is wild. I don't even think I'm fully team Ted though. I mean, I like Ted, but I don't like. I mean, I think that he's a good influence on Alexis, but I don't see it as a long-term thing. I think it's a good thing for a short term, maybe. Yeah, team Mutt though. Jeez. I mean, Alexis
she's
is
the
team
only
Mutt.
human who's team Mutt. Right, exactly. She's the only person who could ever be
so
team Mutt.
boring. Like, what?
He's the worst.
Tell me his redeeming factor. I truly just don't understand. Like, yes, he looked great in a suit. He has a wonderful beard. What? Other than that, literally, like, he touches her hair one time and she's like, ah, and it's just like, he got a dead bug out of your hair, Alexis. Like, it's not that great. I'm sorry. I don't see it. And the more I watch it, the more irritated I get because I'm like, Ted is so kind and sweet-natured, and he gave up one of his conferences to come all the way home to attend your mom's surprise party on like a day's notice. Like, come on. One of these guys is super lovely and obviously a golden retriever, and the other one
is a mutt.
Is a mutt, a nasty mutt who stinks and needs a bath.
Not a golden retriever at all.
Yeah.
Thing is,
no shame to
wondering is when the whole like kind of when the changing the stop sign scene happens and he does the whole bug thing at the end, did he pull a bug out of her hair or was that a move? Because he knows what he's doing, surely.
And it's so funny because Mutt plays like he's oblivious. Like Alexis is just like following him around, like she's the golden retriever between the two of them. And so everything, like even something just innocuous is like, I just reached up and grabbed your hair. She's like, oh my god, this is perfect. So it's like, yeah, sometimes you have to wonder, does he knows that she's into him, but does he know that she's like that? Like she's whipped. Even like that should not get any type of reaction from somebody who is in a relationship. You know, like, oh, okay, you reached up and grabbed my hair. Thank you. That was really nice. But she's in a relationship and she melted. She completely folded like a lawn chair. It was embarrassing.
That's what I never, and this is why Mutt really bothers me as a character, because I don't understand whether or not like, he obviously knows she's into him, but I can't ever read if it's like he's into her but doesn't know what to do, or he's into her but she has a boyfriend, or she's a lot and he's just like, I've never met a person like this before. It's just so hard to understand exactly where his motivations come from because they don't really flesh him out as a character. And so instead, I just end up being very annoyed with him because obviously the audience is going to side with Ted. Like, he is such a nice person and you want him to be a good influence on Alexis. But Stuart, it's almost like you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole where Alexis isn't so much a lump of clay to be molded. Like, she already is kind of a little bit molded into something else. And he's trying to like reshape her in a way that feels like, Ted, this is a fruitless endeavor. You know?
Yeah, stop it. Ted, stand up.
You're not gonna change her, and I don't think that should ever be an endeavor that he tries to do. But I think, bless him, he's gonna try and exert some influence on her, like with the book and everything, which we still aren't a fan of. But why is he wasting his time? I get it, she's lovely, but like, see it for what it is, Ted.
Right. Where are the other eligible bachelorettes in the town? I think also Ted's looking around like slim pickings around here at Schitt's Creek.
He did say she was the prettiest girl he's ever seen. So
right. And I mean, she's very pretty, but also like there's probably roughly 72 people in this town. And so it's like
she's a Schitt's Creek 11. You know what I mean? Like there's not a ton of options there. I think Twyla is an option.
I was gonna say, you've been talking about this at just a scale, but like Stevie and Twyla do exist in this world.
Yeah,
certainly Twyla's gorgeous and kind. Smarts, I don't know where her forte. And I think Stevie is more of like very extremely smart, a little rough around the edges, I'd say.
Got an edge to her.
Yeah, got an edge to her. Speaking of Stevie, I have to ask Stuart, what was your reaction to, we ended last episode with David and Stevie saying, we're just going to be friends. It's all going to be cool. No big deal. But this episode was like not so easy for them to navigate their relationship.
I thought we'd like close this off. I thought we'd kind of got over this kind of awkwardness, and they took a step back, and I was like, I get it. You're maybe trying to like draw this storyline out towards the end of the season, and you want to like kind of keep that lingering open and have a nice moment here and stuff like that. Don't have that resolution in the last episode. Have it in this episode, because firstly, Stevie was a bit of a jackass to David at the beginning. Like David admittedly turned up and was just like, I need a lift. And it's like expecting quite a lot there, buddy. Hold on, I'm working. But Stevie was a bit of a jackass in response. And then David equally was as much of a jackass in response to that by suggesting it was lady things that was obviously the cause of Stevie's kind of ire, and doesn't actually think of her as having complex emotions. I was like, David, come on, you do better than that, buddy. Surely that can't be what you're thinking here, right? Really, David? I expect better from you, right?
Yeah, she's playing Sudoku when he comes in, so she's not busy, and he also is expecting her to drop what she's doing if she is busy, right? Like it's like she's on the clock. It's like if you're at work and your coworker comes and asks you to just like assumes you will just stop and do something for them. It's like, I have a life too, sir, and it doesn't revolve around you. Now, am I using that life for anything of good right now? No, but also the idea that you think I would just drop everything to help you is a little offensive. So I hear what Stevie's saying, but it has nothing to do with that, and it's more about her lingering feelings out over, them connecting on the level that they did a couple episodes ago. Now, that being said, here we are. Stuart, I know you said you wanted to wrap it up, but I mean, if Stevie still has these longing feelings for David to where she's like, this friend thing is tough for me. Do you see there's any world where David comes back and says, all right, well, let's give it a shot? I mean, it sounds like you're pretty out on the David and Stevie relationship.
I see it as a complete blip. I see it as like that kind of exploration that two friends have, and they go, whoa, that just, no, not for us kind of thing. And they move on from it, and they grow as friends better. That's at least what I got from what we had in the last episode. And in this one, I'm now, it's thrown me out of a loop a little bit, because I'm like, did Stevie catch feelings? And I kind of hoped she didn't, because I don't think that David caught feelings, and I don't want that awkwardness to happen between them. I kind of want these two to be like best buddies.
Yeah, Jess. Well, we talked about Alexis being the most eligible bachelorette, but I mean, David is also a catch. He's an attractive dude who showed up. He's not from here, so he's kind of worldly. We know Stevie has, she would love to kind of like probably escape this town, but she feels like she's tethered to this hotel and to this job, to the city. And so when David comes in and they connect on that level, yeah, it's easy for your mind to say, well, obviously we're friends. That's not, what we should do. But then when you sit with it, you're like, but why should I settle for this? You know what I'm saying? Why can't I strive for somebody who has seen the world, who's had a lot of money, who's had a lot of different experiences? Why can't I look further than Schitt's Creek for love? And why can't it be with David?
Yeah, I think a lot of times this feels really common in a friendship that is, that lasts a decent amount of time, and if both of you are single, it's kind of like a question and always in the back of your mind of like, oh, what if, like if you're both single, you get along really well. Maybe there's something there, especially when you haven't dated for a while and there's not a ton of other options in town. It does make sense. I guess my biggest issue with it is kind of echoing what Stuart said of, why are you putting a bow on it last episode just to reopen it this episode? You know what I mean? Like, we finished this. We said we're friends. And Stevie kind of says like, well, when we did decide we were friends, I guess I just built those walls up just a little bit too high. It was almost like, instead of, okay, we went from, maybe almost dating back to friends, but she's like, no, we're all the way back to square one. Like, I barely know you. So it didn't really feel like a linear story to me in that way. Like, I really wished that we had reordered some stuff if that's how they wanted to do it. It was almost like, I don't know. Sarah and I on Shit 90 Shows talk a lot about, we call them like our little post-it ideas, where it's like, they have all these ideas on post-its up on a wall, and occasionally they're like, this episode is missing something. Let me just pull that down and plug it in. And it almost felt like it was like, oh, we don't have anything for Stevie to do this episode. Let's give her a little bit more of an issue with David, and that will fill out the story for the episode. So it just didn't feel like it fit well in this storyline,
See, I really like the human perspective of this though. So we see a lot of the show through the eyes of the Roses, right? So we know how David's feeling, how he thinks about this situation, but Stevie is the victim of that. Like we don't get her perspective. Like we're not as connected to her perspective, right? So David has moved on so quickly. And so we, as the audience, move on with David. We're like, okay, cool. That we understand that. We heard Stevie. But from Stevie's point of view, maybe Stevie has always been interested in David. They finally do the thing. David's immediately like, that was weird. And she's like, yeah, me too. And they say, okay, cool. Let's put a bow on it. Let's end it. Then the next day she wakes up and like, damn, I've had a crush on this dude for a while, and now I have nothing. I legit there. Now I have to figure out what I feel about him. I went from something that I thought might turn into something, it turned into something, and now it's nothing. But where does that leave me with him? Was I reading everything incorrectly at all the time? So it's like, yeah, for a television show that's 30 minutes long, it's easy to wrap it up and say, all right, cool, we've moved on. But a human perspective is, yeah, it's not that easy. Nobody wraps up any emotional ties to people that quickly. There's always going to be something lingering until you really sit down and flesh those things out. And I think that wall was built up so fast that she didn't have time to sit in those feelings. She kind of was like, yeah, oh yeah, this is bad. This was bad. It didn't work. Let's move on. Then she wakes up the next day like, so really, like, there's nothing there. There's nothing. Are we sure? So, I like that the show was able to pivot like that, because there's so many shows that either A, would have drawn that relationship out to where the finale is like when they hook up, and then the next we're waiting all during the break to find out what happens, and then they might come back and it'd be a nothing burger. But to do it in the middle of the season, think you're done with it and say, no, we're actually going to see how much more we can mine from just the interpersonal relationship between these two friends, or friends with quotation marks, and see what we can do from there. And then still have several more episodes to really put a period on whatever that is. Maybe they were still leaving the idea that at the season finale, we could open that back up. And then next season, we start off immediately with them back in a relationship. Like, you don't want to close off any doors. So I like that they did it in the middle of the season, because it's jarring and it's not predictable. And I think there's so many shows that this would have been a predictable ending, and now it just feels like, oh, or maybe this is another beginning to a different side storyline that we might get moving forward. So, I really enjoyed this episode a lot. I'm glad you picked me for this one, Jess.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I guess so. I totally understand where you're coming from like a human perspective with Stevie. My biggest problem is that it's so tropey, and this show is so, like, it's very predictable that, like, oh, you have a guy and a girl that are friends. Of course, they're going to try their hand at dating or hooking up or whatever. And this show is so anti-trope a lot of times. Like, they tend to zig where other shows zag, that, like, it's a little disappointing to have to put up with a little bit of, like, this sort of, not even a will they, won't they, because it's really not that. This isn't like a Ross and Rachel sort of situation, but it's more of like, you want, and maybe this is just us, Stuart, like, we want their relationship to go back to being what it was, which was snarky and sassy and fun and, like, digging at each other. But, like, from a real human perspective, it feels like possibly for Stevie, to her, maybe that was flirting. And so now she's like a little bit like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I guess I can't be quippy back and forth with you anymore,
I do kind of appreciate the fact that in what they did, they didn't actually portray what they built up with Stevie. Like, Stevie has always had these walls up. You can tell by the snark, you can tell by the edge that is like, she very rarely invites people in like that. And so to invite David in and to have that kind of like scuffed away, doesn't work kind of thing, I think that totally makes sense. I guess it is this kind of conflict between having kind of neat writing and also having, what I want is a return to the friendship and the kind of like dependability of, this is an aspect of the show that I'm enjoying, and I kind of want that not to.
I need it back.
Kind of, yeah. It's not necessarily that I need it back. I think it's also that I kind of don't want it to go away in the future. Like, I still want that to be available, and I don't want either of them to kind of get hurt from this process, and for that possibility to be lost. But then, I do appreciate the complexity and the actual truth to the characters, and life is messy, and it does, like, people don't necessarily wrap things up and like cut off feelings when they have that chat. Like, things do linger and people do have awkward conversations. A little bit of complexity like this, all from a really short show, is wild to me. I never expected that we'd have conversations like this when we signed up for this. I thought I'd just be on here going, Roland's funny, LOL. That would be the podcast.
Like, ha ha ha. They said shit. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, yeah. But no, I really love Stevie. I really do love Stevie going and being like, no, okay, yeah, we're friends, but also, are we friends on a level where I have to now put myself in a position where I can get hurt? You know, she doesn't actually express, like, say those words out loud, but you want me to stop what I'm doing to go and drive you to Elmdale or whatever for your mom. And I'm like, but what if I start to engage again in those feelings that we said we're not doing this, right? So why would I put myself in a position to then fall deeper into whatever feelings I have for you, right? You said we're cutting this off. Well, let's break it up. Let's take some space. I don't need to be jumping through these hoops. There's probably somebody else you can go to who doesn't have this connection to you, who won't feel hurt by this. I'm very proud of her for saying like, nah, I hear you. And she's not pining for him. She's not saying like, oh yeah, like, oh, if you don't want to be with me, then I don't want to be friends with you. But she's definitely saying, okay, well, just in case, for me to make sure I don't get caught up, nah, you go somewhere else for that, because if I do it, I'm going to start to, I might start to develop those very things that we've agreed to that we're not doing. And I think that's very human, and it's very endearing for me from Stevie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Stevie is someone to watch in terms of a character arc. I think Stevie's story kind of jumps up and hits you in the face, like almost like the way Chappell described falling in love with the show, where suddenly you realize you're in love with the show. I think that's kind of how Stevie's storyline works as well across these seasons. Is suddenly it's just like she's more of a quiet character. You know what I mean? She doesn't get these like big storylines a lot. But suddenly you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, this is like a huge moment for Stevie. So definitely someone to watch. And I think this is like a good kind of mark on the timeline for Stevie as like a moment of growth is this episode. Mm-hmm. Let's get into some feedback about this episode. We did hear from Trish, who says, it's so obvious that Mutt is into Alexis. I just wish that she could appreciate what she already has with Ted and let Mutt know. Moira's party was lovely, and so pleased to see Stevie and David moving past an awkwardness. Fingers crossed, anyway. So Trish has high hopes for Stevie and David being able to move past this.
We want all of them to be happy and to find love, and be fulfilled in whatever way they want. And so it's like, yeah, in a way, rooting like against the David and Stevie relationship, or Davy as I like to call them, Davy, rooting against them is to say like, okay, well, maybe Stevie doesn't get what she wants, And I think that a lot of times when you fall in love with these characters, you want them all to be happy. So you're kind of like, a part of you is like, okay, well, David, would it be the worst thing if you came around? You know what I'm saying? If it was like, if you doubled back and was like, all right, Stevie, let's give it a shot, because I think they'd be precious together. It'd be snarky, it'd be fun, but also it'd be kind of cute. So yeah, there you go.
Stuart just grimaced for all the podcast listeners. Will asks, have you ever planned a surprise party or attended one? And was it a successful surprise, Stuart?
I haven't personally planned it, but I've attended one, and it actually went off without a hitch. And it was one of those really awkward things where they come home, it's all dark and stuff, and one of them was blindfolded, and they were making the dirtiest jokes because they were like, "Oh, what do you have planned for me?" kind of thing, and we were all there just going, "We're your family. Stop saying this." But they were surprised, so I guess that worked.
So embarrassing.
How about yourselves?
I'm throwing a surprise party right now. I'm currently in the planning stages. My mom her birthday is coming up, so she's not listening to this podcast because that would be wild. But if she was, I just fucked it up.
That's so exciting! Look at you. Yeah. Is it a big one? Like, are you having trouble making sure people don't spill the beans?
No, because we're keeping everything like pretty close to the vest or whatever. It was my aunt's idea, and so she like enlisted me to make sure that like everything else is in line. So it's like she came up with the plan and then was like, okay, you go execute everything. So I'm doing all the work. I will get none of the praise at the end of the day. Everybody else and then if anything goes wrong, I'll be yelled at. And I don't think that'll be fair unless she listens to this very podcast, in which case, it's 100% my fault.
It's my fault.
It explains a lot of sympathies with David.
Yeah, exactly. Now, a part of my mom is very temperamental. A tiny part of me, wants to pull her to the side and be like, "Listen, it's a surprise party. Get over
be
it.
cool.
Pretend. Yeah, you fake it because she's crazy. Like she legit. She's not like Moira who just like it's not tapped in. My mom is legit like so like type A that she needs to know everything. She needs to see everything.
Yeah.
She will ask you a billion questions. If she sees you with the wrong person at the wrong time, she's like, "Why were you with them? What was going on? What are y'all talking about?" She's just like that. So a tiny part of me just wants to be like, "Listen, there's a party. It's not a fundraiser. Deal with it. Be there. Dress nice. I'll see you at 8. You know, so we'll see what happens. I'll update y'all the next time I'm on the podcast.
Yeah, that's incredible. I've never been thrown a surprise party. I've not really been involved in the planning. I've attended one. My dad threw my mom we called it a 40-ish birthday party because it certainly was a surprise. He threw her a 40th birthday party a few weeks before she turned 41. And so it went off without a hitch. He did surprise her, I think. I guess I could ask her if she was actually surprised or faking it. But I was very young, and the one thing I remember is that he bought so we have like a Costco equivalent. It's called BJ's Warehouse, and it's like Costco basically where you buy things in bulk. He bought sauerkraut in bulk, thinking that like, oh, we're gonna be barbecuing and doing like hot dogs and everything. And I was like, who do you know that puts sauerkraut on hot dogs to the point where you would need to buy it in bulk? We had so much leftover sauerkraut. And that is the one thing I remember from it, besides every single one of my mom and her brothers all throwing up from drinking too much. And that's how you know it was a good party.
Great party. My kind of party.
Yeah.
Will also asks, who in Schitt's Creek would you trust to actually keep a secret? So who is it that Johnny should have approached with this? Besides, Roland obviously wasn't the choice.
Jocelyn. No questions.
Yeah.
Jocelyn is the dependable person who you can rely on at any stage. Her husband, on the other hand, absolutely not. But Jocelyn, go to.
Yeah, I do think Jocelyn's a chalk pick.
Yeah, send Roland to Chicago for the pizza tour. Like that's where he needs to be, you know, because then nobody would get him out of the way. He won't mess it up.
Love it.
Yeah, I think the only other person I was thinking of was Ronnie, who you really don't know super well, Stuart. Yeah. Obviously, she was in the party planning moments. But I think the problem is Moira and Ronnie aren't particularly close. So, like, would Moira feel like she had an obligation to go to like a fundraiser Ronnie was throwing? You know. Ashley says Moira's awful feigning surprise doesn't reflect well on her soap career.
Or that's how people read soap opera actresses sometimes, a little over the top, So.
Yeah. Also, I had to look up what a chocolate tort was. Like, I didn't understand the difference between a tort and a cake. I just don't, maybe I'm just not, fancy enough. I don't know. Torts felt very fancy to me. It's like a rich, denser cake, right?
Yeah. Just a lot more solid.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know that it's for me. I'm like a very basic girl when it comes to cake, like carrot cake and strawberry shortcake. Those are my two faves.
Would it be the deal breaker if you didn't have candles?
Yeah, it's a birthday. Like, I want to blow out candles. I want to make a wish.
Would you be okay with us stealing the candles?
Absolutely. Do what you gotta do.
All right, cool.
$2. I do agree with Alexis, not about generally I'm not like a shoplifter or anything. Let me just throw that out there.
Generally.
Well, I've never shoplifted on purpose. Like I've walked out of a store with something accidentally not realizing, I've certainly done that. However, I do agree with Alexis that if you're gonna steal, do it from a big corporation. Steal from Walmart,
I used to rob Walmart blind. Yeah, look. What's the statute of limitations? My mom's not listening to this, right? Because if she's listening, I ruined the surprise, and also she's going to call me a thief. I used to rob them blind. Anything that could fit in my pockets. Listen, stealing from big corporations is not only supported by me, but it's also encouraged. I really think that you should do your job to take down billionaires in every way that you can. And so stealing some sunglasses, some candles, something that just doesn't harm anybody. There no lives were lost in the stealing of these candles for the party. I think it's fine. Like I said, I have a past with Walmart specifically. I had a grudge. I just feel like you shouldn't be paying elderly people $8 an hour to stand at the door all day. Pay them more money. You know what I'm saying? And then don't have them chasing down shoplifters either. That's crazy, especially because they can't never catch me. I'm too fast. And so that's how I feel,
That's the best mental image.
It's also ridiculous. Like Johnny gets like all upset because she stole sunglasses, and she talks about like, oh, matches come with cigarettes, and he's like, you smoke? Like, we don't get a ton of Alexis and Johnny moments. At least we haven't so far. And so all the moments they had this episode really did crack me up, especially when he's sleeping in the car, wakes up, and she's past the exit for Elmdale, and he's like, why didn't you wake me up? And she's like, well, you're always grumpy when I wake you up. It's just
point proven by the way in which he was. I mean, it was only 45 minutes down the road.
Yeah, so funny. He slept for 45 minutes.
I just want to know why Alexis did not exit. She saw the exit. She points out that she saw the exit.
She drives. Like, I truly imagine being a rich person. Like, if you're like a Kendall Roy, like, you're not driving anywhere. You have drivers. You don't know how the roads work. Bad choice on Johnny to make her drive. Let's be real.
Yeah, very much so.
He was out of options. Yeah, he could have drove himself. That would have been wise. That would have been wise.
Yeah, he's been to Elmdale. We know he had to get unemployment checks there. He knows where he's going.
He's stolen.
I wonder if his license has been taken away ever since he stole a car from Bob.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the background, Johnny is just a felon now.
Certainly possible, I guess. Yeah. All right, let's get into our ratings here. Chappell, let's start with you. Who are you giving your simply the best MVP point to this episode? Who impressed you this episode?
Oh man, I'm such a Moira fanboy sometimes. I try not to just always be like Moira was the best, but wasn't she? She was so good. She was such a good sport when it came to her surprise. The entire episode, she's trying to do a fundraiser that doesn't exist, and she's hell bent on making it the most profitable support fundraiser of all time. And I'm like, that is something that I love fundraising. I love it. I love being helping people. And so just seeing her just put all her effort into this, she never mentioned her birthday one time. They brought it up to her. She's just completely tapped in on the fundraiser. I'm sorry. I just have to give it to her. She's simply the best.
Fair enough. Stuart, who's simply the best for you?
I was leaning towards Jocelyn until I heard that. I was kind of going, Jocelyn went along with stuff, but to not mention your birthday when everyone's talking about this fundraiser and then to volunteer for the fundraiser too, I think Moira's got to get it.
I could never not mention my birthday in a week. It's in a week.
A week away, and you're planning
to mention it,
right? Mm-hmm. And they just told you it was on the same day of your birthday, and she never once said, "Oh, well, I maybe I can stop by after my birthday party, or what are we gonna do?" But that's tough. It's tough that I won't be able to make it. She completely shifted everything to go to that fundraiser. She never even mentioned her day. Man, I'm sorry. She's just
so selfless.
So
I'm going to give my point to someone who I feel like we've been pretty hard on this season. And so I want to reward him for a job well done this episode. And that is Johnny. I feel like he really does work really hard to throw his wife a party. And like the way he says to Alexis and David, no, it's like, it's even more important that we throw her a party this year, and whatever your plans are, cancel them. Plus I have to give him the point for the talk to the hand, because the ears aren't and like the way they reacted was like exactly like you would react when you're embarrassed by a parent. Like, oh, that's not what it is. Like, so cringy. Oh, how embarrassing for you. Johnny was such a sweet angel this episode. And I gotta give him a little bit of credit for getting the 5-finger discount on the candles, like it's just, I just
my boy.
Yeah. Let's move to the other side of things and give out our disgruntled pelican point. Stuart, let's start with you. Who is a disgruntled pelican this episode?
Okay, we've been on a downer for Mutt for quite some time. I wondered if maybe we're going to drift away from it. No, Mutt still gets it, because Mutt knows the situation, and Mutt is playing as if doesn't know what's going on. Mutt's fully conscious of what's going on and should not be doing this. And I kind of wanted to give it to Alexis, but Alexis was too funny in this episode, so Mutt definitely gets it.
What about you, Chappell?
No, I'm going to give it to Alexis. I have to hold her accountable at some point, because she is fighting tooth and nail to not do this thing for her mom. She does not help in pretty much any way except driving her dad past the exit that she needed to go to. Like, she had one job and she did not do it. She did not do it effectively. And then she spends the entire fundraising surprise party flirting with someone else while Ted is bending over backwards to be a good boyfriend for her and show up for her family. I'm telling you, I love Alexis, but I have to point out that she just sucked in this episode.
She really did. I was very torn between Mutt and Alexis for my disgruntled pelican point. And there's only just one simple line that saved this person from being the disgruntled pelican, and it was
Babe. Yeah. She said, so it's room service, babe.
I can't explain it to you. I hate pet names. I'm not a pet names person, but it was the way in which when she finds out about room service, it's babe. Like it just, it cracked me up. It just cracked me up in such a way. And I hate Mutt so much that it is such an easy way. Like, again, I said this before and I'll say it again. The worst thing you could be on TV is boring. And he is capital B boring. So he's getting my disgruntled pelican point.
As a listener of this podcast, I will say that I've been enjoying y'all's journey away from the Roland hate. Because the first episode, it felt like Stuart was just going to give Roland the disgruntled pelican from now into, from infinity and beyond. Like he was always going to get it. And now it's like, this episode, I think Roland might have been in contention for one of the higher awards here. He's not going to beat Moira, not in this episode for me. But man, he did it. He did so well. And then you look at somebody like Alexis, who's dragging Mutt around, and you're like, yeah, both of them are sucking right now. They can get it too. So, as a listener, I'm very much enjoying all of this.
Yeah, it's so funny, Stuart, because we did say it's like, is Roland going to be like the worst of the worst?
The default.
He's
we thought that he would be like the placeholder.
Yeah, but he's actively gotten simply the best points. So
yeah, I see him drifting towards that way all the time because he is the go-to guy that Johnny depends upon. And I'm like, the more that Johnny depends on him, the more he's gonna like turn up and do things and offer things. Yeah, okay, he's not gonna be the best about it, but Roland's turnaround from like first episode, I'm so glad about it. And again, it's that is all adding into this whole warm hug kind of idea with this show is that like they've made me like Roland. So like what can't they do?
Yeah. Surprise.
Yes.
All right, we have to talk about, we're on Wig Watch this week, and we have to talk about Moira's wig. She wore a wig to her surprise party, kind of like an auburn, almost like a French twist moment. Stuart, what do we think of this wig?
I'm just glad we're seeing color variants finally, like properly, something different. Again, not as large as I would expect. I'm like wanting Moira to go full drag and get the volume of like stacking wigs on wigs, but to see variants, I don't know this one's name. I want to find out its name. I want its history. I need that back catalog of just information. But yeah, good to see some difference.
Yeah, Chappell, I don't know that Moira is an auburn,
No. Like, but you talk about color variants, strap in, Stuart, because it's gonna get wild at some points. Yes. And so this is so tame when you talk about color, okay? But my favorite Moira wig is in my favorite Moira episode, and it doesn't hold a candle to this one. This one is nicer than the one that I love. The one that I love, it looks like a bird's nest, but you'll see it soon enough.
Yeah, this one does feel like I'm like a 40-ish-year-old mom going to a fancy party, night out on the town sort of vibe, It's nothing super special.
Nothing crazy.
Yeah, nothing too crazy this episode. All right, let's get into the tier ranking of our episodes. As always, we're going to present our little tier list here for you all. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you can watch us do this live. And not live, but you can see the list. We're not live, but you can see the list. All right, so from top to bottom, hot shit, full bouquet, love that journey for me, you, David, and shit out of luck. Chappell, any inkling where you want to put this episode in this ranking?
Okay, so to spoil what my rankings would be, it's really hard to touch the honeymoon episode. It just is. And so it cannot be higher than that at all. So I would say I love that journey for me. But I like a lot of your other placements a lot. It's just that honeymoon episode really does stand out as one of my favorites in the first season. So I'd put it somewhere and love that journey for me. Probably.
All right, Stuart, what about you?
Yeah, certainly top end of Love That Journey for me, lower end of Full Bouquet, like if it's going to go anywhere. I agree with Chappell, it doesn't live up to the honeymoon. Like, does not have as much drama or laughs. Cabin still is up there as being one of the funniest ones for me. I still can't get over just the ridiculousness of that whole sequence. And this kind of dipped into that realms of like the kind of misunderstandings going on based on a conversation between Johnny and Roland. So it's kind of like going towards that realm. But this one doesn't get you with the laughs, but it gives you with the fuzzies. And we get like good character progression. We're getting some good kind of like, as much as I'm not a huge fan of the Alexis and Mutt stuff, we're getting drama. And I love a bit of drama.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be unhappy to see it at the lower end of full bouquet. But if not that, Hopper Love That Journey for me.
Yeah. I think Eileen Love That Journey for me simply because when I'm breaking down the different storylines, as I like to do, there are a few that I'm not a huge fan of. Like the Alexis and Mutt stuff, like I just feel like by the end of the season, it's kind of growing a little tiresome. Like I'm kind of like getting to the point where it's like, all right, Alexis, like either break up with Ted and be with Mutt or stop messing around with Mutt, you know, like enough of this already. So it kind of gets a little tiresome. And then the Stevie and David stuff, as I've said, I understand it on a human level in terms of like television tropes, not my favorite. But I do love getting to see the whole family together and come together for Moira's birthday party. I like that the entire town gets involved in it. So I do really, really love that aspect. So I definitely think I would lean towards putting it in Love That Journey for me. And I wouldn't be too upset to see it at the high end. You know, I would probably argue that it goes beneath like Bad Parents and maybe Wine and Roses. But if the feel good moments are that feel good for you both, then I'm totally cool with putting it at the top of Love That Journey for me.
Yeah. I don't mind it going under Bad Parents. I like that episode probably a little bit more, but yeah, same concept. As long as it's in this general area, I think it's just a really good episode.
Yeah, it's a great one. All right,
this
Stuart,
is where Melissa drags us for ranking them rather than
actually. You know what, Melissa, if you're listening, we're only going to do this per season, so we only have one more that we have to remember. All right, and it's good because I have a goldfish brain. So that's where we're going to land. It's going to land at the top of Love That Journey for me. And we have one more episode for season 1. Stuart, can you believe it?
It's going too quick. And I'm liking the fact that I'm getting to like a season end. Finally, it's been so long, but this is going too quick and I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Do you want to know the title for next week's episode? Town for Sale.
Oh, I wonder what town that could be. Do they finally find a buyer?
Another town. I don't know. To wait and see, I guess.
That could possibly be it. But yeah, that's my theory. I think we get a buyer.
Well, we'll have to wait and see next week. We're going to be joined by another guest, which will keep a surprise, but I'm really excited. This episode is really fun. I think it's a really fun cap on the season. And then just a reminder, we are going to do a season 1 wrap up. So we're not going to jump straight into season 2. We're going to stop down and chat a little bit about our journey through season 1 and whether or not we loved that journey for us. Chappell, thank you so much for joining us. It is always a pleasure to get to chat with you. And I loved getting to hear your thoughts on Schitt's Creek because I feel like we haven't really talked about the show like on a personal level at all. So it was really interesting to get to hear your experience with it.
Yeah, I love it. I don't think I'm booked for anything in season 2. So if there's some openings, it's like we can talk about it for sure. I'd definitely come back to talk. There's a very interesting Moira episode with some scandalous photos that if anybody's talking about that one, I definitely want to come back and for that one, not just,
I'm putting you down for it.
Yeah. Oh, Stuart. But anyway.
What?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, but yes, Jess, thank you so much for having me. I didn't get to talk about this show in the real time, and so I'm very excited to talk about it with y'all. Obviously, Stuart, it's been a pleasure getting to podcast with you, but also, like I said earlier, I'm a fan of the podcast, so I'm very happy to hear y'all every week. And like, I'm not gonna I can't watch the show along with y'all because I will pass you up and watch it all over again, right? So I'm trying to just listen to the podcast, and then after y'all watch one and talk about it, then I'll go back and relive some of those moments with y'all. So this has been so much fun to be able to get to actually get to weigh in on my thoughts as well. So thank you so much.
Of course. Where can people find you if they want to hear more? We know you're up to just ever so much all the time, Chappell.
Yeah, recapkickback.com is where all my shenanigans are found right now. And so shenaned once, and damn it, I'm a shenan again. That's what I do. And so you can check me out over there, and on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@recapkickback, because we are creeping up on 1,000 subscribers.
Woo-hoo!
And I'm really excited about that. So thank you all for listening to me. And if you want to go subscribe and to show some love, click like on that and smash that subscribe button. I'd very much appreciate it.
And speaking of the will they won't they's, I can't wait to listen to your Abbott Elementary podcast because I have thoughts. Okay,
I have thoughts. Okay, yes, exactly. Abbott Elementary recap over there. Summer House Martha's Vineyard over there as well, and then other weekly content as we find it. So check us out and subscribe to Recap Kickback wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Stuart, where can people find you besides here at Talking Shit?
Find me on socials, Stuart Drinks Tea, reading, and also like feedback. We love the feedback. So like sort of podcast at talkingshit.com, talking about this and actually having people like Chappell like listen along and provide their opinions has been one of my favorite aspects of this podcast. So yeah, please do get in touch.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun at Talking Shit. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to look at our beautiful faces and our little charts and everything that we have. You can also hear me on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me, where Sarah and I are talking through Buffy and Felicity, and both of those shows are popping off. We're like trying to break down the Buffy lore. I'm sure anyone who's ever watched Buffy is like infuriated by us because we don't know anything and we're just speculating all the time. But you know what? That's just life. You're going to have to deal with it. And if you like Xander, then I kindly invite you to just listen to me slander him constantly because he truly is the worst. So go check that out at Shit 90s Pod. You can find me at the Jess Sterling. And next week, we'll be back with the season finale of season 1 of Schitt's Creek. So until next time, warmest regards.
And best wishes.